Brazil's energy sector a few years ago, 5-6 years ago, looked like a great white hope. They struck a huge deposit. They have this huge national oil company, Petrobras, that was supposed to start producing a lot of oil, enough to, I think, the equivalent of 10 years of US demand or something like that. It hasn't happened. Raul, what's been the problem? I mean, you've now got economic growth under 1% a year in Brazil. Oil should have been able to turn that around. Right?
It's a story that lost its momentum a while ago. And there's essentially two main factors. You know, Brazil has closed up its licensing to new areas for exploration. So
Right.
a lot of investors essentially lost hope and patience that they would have new opportunities to exploit.
Right, and because Petrobras, although it's huge, doesn't necessarily have the expertise or the
capacity
money itself.
at this
right, so you
particular
need
point.
Exxons, you need Chevrons, you need all these people to come in like everywhere else.
Yes, but once Brazil discovered that they had so much wealth underneath the ocean, they decided that they were going to start essentially discussing how to spread the wealth within Brazil. And that
Right.
took several years, and that has essentially delayed the whole process. And then on the production front, you have the problem that Brazil has forced companies to essentially buy made in Brazil. Like 30% of what they need in services and products has to be made in Brazil. And Brazil doesn't have the capacity to service all their demands. So that has also become a big bottleneck that has essentially delayed what, you know, should be a booming story.
Chris, what's the answer? I mean, do they have to do less of this? Buy it at home? What is it?
They could look, I suppose, to other places in the world that have had big oil bounties and made a better job of it. And the most
Right.
obvious example of that is the United States, where
Right.
the government has maintained a very hands-off approach. In Brazil, obviously, lots of this has been state-directed.
Right.
They've come down like a ton of bricks on any foreign oil company that spilt so much as a drop of oil.
Right, and this was Chevron's case, right?
Yeah, Chevron spilt a very, very tiny amount of oil compared to the millions that BP obviously poured into the
Right.
Gulf. And executives have been arrested. They've faced a temporary ban. It's been a very, very aggressive, disproportionate response.
Right,
Which
so-
points to essentially the other major factor in Brazil, and that is the judicial system is a problem. You know, now you have this particular situation with Chevron leading to expat workers demanding, you know, plane tickets and other assurances that they can
make
get
sure
out
they
of
can get out if
Brazil
something bad happens.
if there is a problem. So that adds, you know, cost to
Okay,
the whole equation.
so what's the answer? So part of the answer is
Essentially
more
is
private sector.
make sure that in the coming year you license new areas, particularly the offshore areas that everyone is interested in, make them, you know, more accessible sooner. And when you make those accessible, make sure that you don't demand so many of the suppliers to be Brazilian.
Right. So keep the government's nose out of the industry, at least less than it
Give more
currently is.
flexibility so that the actual business and the actual pumping of oil starts. Then later on you
Right.
can demand, you know, more of it to be done, you know, in-house, more products to be demanded that are
Okay.
Brazilian.
I mean, I think you made the point in your piece. There's some domestic political risk with that, but given the economic growth has slowed down, it could be worth the payoff. Okay,
Yes.
we'll leave it there, and we'll have more breaking views next week.